Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and also we're going to be talking about Stephen King's The Shining, the book, not the miniseries. And today I brought my mama on to talk about both of these versions because there's a lot to talk about. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I am just a figment of your imagination because it's Halloween month. How's that?
That's good. That's good. And the reason why I brought you on is because you and I feel somewhat differently about the Kubrick version and Stephen King's version.
I think that I'm on Stephen King's side because the book is so much more detailed and better and intriguing and creepy and all the things that you want in a horror movie.
Okay. Now, how this is going to work, we are going to talk about both of these versions for about a minute or two, just to give you our brief thoughts, and then we're just going to go into spoilers because there's a lot to talk about both versions, and my mom's going to talk immensely about the book, and I've got a lot to say about the movie as well, and I have read the book, in case anyone's curious, and I will rate both the book and the movie by the end of when I'm all done. So, without further ado, how about you go first? Why don't you summarize both the book and the movie, because I know you like the book better. So talk about the book for a little bit, and then talk about the movie.
Well, let me just preface it by saying that when I first saw the movie, when it came out, I had no idea it was a book. So I didn't have anything to compare that to at the time. Mm-hmm. But since reading the book and then going back and watching the movie or remembering the movie, it's like, there's a whole lot missing here. And it's a whole lot less creepy and leading to scariness, if you will, when you don't know some of the things that are happening behind the scenes that you miss out in the movie.
Okay. My turn. I'm a Kubrick fan. He's my favorite director, for those who don't know, and I really love the movie. I've seen it a couple times now, and I think this is my third time watching it, and I still love it. It gives me everything that I would want out of a film from Kubrick, and there's not really one scene in this movie that I would take out. Every scene leads up to something, and I love the tone, and I love the editing. I love the characters. I really love the performances, and the music really works very well. And I'll get into more detail later, but that's how I feel about the movie. The book, I do like. I did like the book. I read it once a few months back. Yeah, a few months back, and I liked it. There's a couple things that stood out to me as being really good, and there's a couple things that I really love about the book, but unfortunately where we're going to disagree is that the book didn't engage me or connect with me as much as the film did. And now that I've said all that, I guess it's time to get into spoilers, and I'm going to count down from 3, and I'm going to let you burst out in rage about everything that I just said, and we are going to get into spoilers in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, you definitely need to read the book. I'm sorry, somehow I have failed you, John, as a mother, because you are not as engrossed in the book as I am. There are so many details in that book to make you think about, well, why is this guy going kind of psycho crazy once they get there, and why has the past caretakers gone crazy? I mean, just by, hallucinating characters, if you will, at the bar or in the hallways, and, talking with these spirits, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
The book goes into a whole lot of detail about, while they're there, this, secluded place, just the 3 of them. Mm-hmm. And he discovers down in the basement by where the boiler room is, under the stairs, all these journals and newspaper articles and scrapbooks talking about the history of the hotel and the guests that were there and the happenings that, over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that is brought out in the movie. And I remember when I saw Jack typing, at his desk, which is hilarious. He's got one chair at this table that's like dining for 12 in the middle of the foyer or the lobby, whatever you want to call it. And you see one of the scrapbooks that, you can see there's little newspaper articles, you can see little pictures in the movie, and he doesn't talk about it at all. The whole thing that he's working on once he gets there is supposed to be writing a novel, and he changes it after reading these scrapbooks and is all of a sudden engrossed in the hotel's history and starts writing a novel about the hotel. And as he keeps digging deeper and deeper into, the past, that's what's driving his mind crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The movie doesn't touch it at all.
Okay.
Problem number 1.
All right. Okay, so I guess on the defensive, I understand how you feel. I just don't feel that way, mainly because you mentioned that it doesn't really bring that up. I don't really agree with that. It's brought up briefly at the beginning when Jack Torrance is being interviewed, and they say this guy named Grady, he killed his family, and he took a shotgun bullet and blew his brains out. And for me, that's all you need. That's all you need to know. It doesn't need to go into immense detail as to what happened, because it kind of the film that does show brief images of what happened, and you see kind of the dead corpses of the 2 girls.
Oh, that was a great scene. I agree with you there.
And although you did say that it's about in the book, it's about Jack going crazy as he's not only making the book and starts to get engrossed into it, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
I feel as though what Kubrick really wanted to do was kind of have that, but also do his own thing, which would be, instead of the history of the hotel coming in on him and completely changing him, like from memory from the book, I believe that Jack was a character who you slowly learned more about him, and it gave him a lot of backstory. And there's a line in the book, and it's like the big quote. I think it was, "Don't forget to take your medicine" or something.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that big quote from the book, or one of them. Or at least that's one standing out to me in my head.
Okay.
In the movie, we don't get any of that. Instead, it's a character who you can tell that there are, in the interview, you can see that he's just he's trying to present himself as a good person, and you don't really see much from him. And it is brought up that he used to be a school teacher, and that didn't really work out, and he's just trying to cover up the fact that things didn't exactly work out. It doesn't really go into too much detail about it, but the reason why it works for me is because since this movie is about 2.5 hours long, it does know that it needs to move and not to feel boring. And I'm sure there are things that were initially cut out. I didn't look at any of the deleted scenes. I forgot to do that. But in terms of what Kubrick wanted to do with Jack Torrance as a character was... I'm going to talk about the tone really quickly. It starts off kind of light, where there's not really crazy things happening. And as the movie progresses, it slowly gets darker and darker, and eventually it gets really crazy. And I'll go into more detail about that. Going back to the tone of the film is also a representation of, in a way, you could interpret this, Jack's... how should I say, his attitude almost, because as the movie goes along, he gets more upset, and when he's driving the car with Wendy and Danny in the car, you can tell just by his face that he's not happy. He's kind of irritated. There's clearly something on his mind, and it's later revealed that Wendy is kind of in the way from him loving his son, and he can't really do what he wants to do, and he can't drink, and that's something that he would love to do, and he hasn't been...
Maybe it's because she's holding a grudge because he dislocated his kid's arm. in a fit of rage, coming home drunk. And so he's trying to blame his bad behavior on her as being too controlling.
And that's one thing that I want to bring up later.
Okay.
That's like a major thing about bad behavior. And I have talked about it in my review for the Florida Project, how bad behavior just spreads. In this movie, I'll get back on track to what I was talking about earlier. In this movie, it uses that as a means to show how becoming not a very good person and like just trying to kill people or destroy other people's lives, it doesn't really bring you anything. And you could say that, oh, if characters are dead, then there's no one stopping you from getting what you want. But in reality, once you kill them, then and you kill more people, you destroy things. And once you do that, eventually you realize that none of that helped you at all. And there's really nothing you helped for other people. There's nothing that you helped for yourself. And it's just really bad. And I think that's what Kubrick really wanted to do. And whenever Jack kind of becomes a bad person, he just ends up paying for it. Because by the end of the movie, he got lost in a maze and froze to death.
Very, very fitting, huh?
Kind of reminds me a bit of Barry Lyndon.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
Whenever the main character does something good, he just ends up paying for it.
Yep, just bites him in the behind. Nice.
Yeah. Without spoiling Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
Now, going back to Jack, I know I'm taking up a lot of time.
It's okay.
Going back to Jack and his kind of history and what Kubrick was trying to do with him with a couple things.
Which, by the way, in the book, it gives that history of his bad behavior and how it comes up in an interview that Stanley Kubrick just glossed over and made it seem like it was a beautiful, easy interview. But in the book, not so much.
No.
They know his background and they feel they're giving him a favor. And so that sets a bad taste in his mouth. He's already grumpy from the get-go.
Yeah, I liked that part in the book. There was like a couple lines that I didn't like as that the first chapter ended, like the last two lines.
Okay.
What were they? 1 second. Oh, I'll just say the last two lines that I didn't like. There were, because eventually what happened is at the end of the interview, they didn't shake hands. And
there was no COVID in this movie, so there was no reason not to.
Yeah, and Ullman said, no hard feelings, when internally Jack, there were hard feelings, but in the book they said, there were hard feelings, all kinds of them. That was a little comical for me. I didn't like that last line. What Kubrick does so well with his characters, he establishes everything you need to know from one scene alone. And from the first scene, you see something happening with a character, let's say Jack in the bar. The first time he goes to the bar, you learn everything you need to know about him. Sure, it doesn't give you his whole backstory, but there is substance given to the film for sure. And there's always things to pick up on, not just like photographs in the background. There's like different things that I'm picking up about characters and how they were written. And there was one element that I noticed about Wendy's character that I really liked, and how she's just almost a representation of a good human being. She doesn't freak out or she doesn't abuse anyone. She doesn't drink, and she's just playing as an innocent mother. That's basically what Kubrick wanted, and I think she does a great job. I know a lot of people don't like her in this movie.
Yeah, she's portrayed as, the good wife that's following her husband's career and hoping for him, to succeed and, being a good mom to her son Danny. And, life just keeps throwing crap all over her because, they moved to this crazy place that's technically haunted by spirits that are still there.
One thing that I learned because obviously there's so many differences between the movie and the book. They're almost like not even the same story aside from the basic premise. One thing that Kubrick said to Stephen King as to why he wasn't going to have anything talk about ghosts in this movie. And Kubrick's reasoning for not straight up saying that was, this was over a phone call. He said, "I don't believe in ghosts." That was his reason.
Which translates to, I'm scared out of my mind of ghosts, so I can't put them in the movie, or I might cry in between scenes.
I don't know about that. It's like you can still have ghosts in your movie and not believe in ghosts. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
But yet we couldn't call them what they were, ghosts or spirits or poltergeist.
I consider them ghosts. I call them.
Okay.
Ghosts. And the movie doesn't really force you to interpret the film in one specific way. You can take away whatever you want. But I think it's about time I give you a turn.
Yeah, I wanted to bring out another, what I thought was a really awesome part of the novel is only Stephen King can lead up to, something that's normal, and then he has to twist it into being creepy. So what would be normal, and something that they talked about in the book a lot, was setting up the scene where they would go outside and there was a playground for Danny to go play in, and it's a great place for a little kid, right? And the walkway between the hotel and the playground was lined with topiary animals, kind of like you would see at Disney World or Disneyland. But no, in the book, every so often there'd be like this creepy feeling, and they're like, oh, you kind of felt like something moved or something was watching you. And then the story unfolds, we end up getting chased and attacked by said topiary bushes, because we have lions that, they're going to come attack you. And none of that's in the movie at all. And it's like, why would you not have that? Yeah, the maze was cool and all, but
I love the maze.
But you could just get lost in it. Big deal, right? You're not going to get attacked by it. It's not like in Harry Potter, Goblet of Fire, where you're going to get pulled in by vines and meet your ultimate death. There was nothing scary other than being chased in the by somebody with an axe. I really liked that whole scene of the outdoors in the topiary, because when you go to a luxury place, there's always these extra touches that make it stand out from another hotel property. And this is something that really made it stand out. And especially when they keep giving all these iconic outdoor views of Timberline Lodge, and then they don't encapsulate any of the other outdoorsy features, if you will, that were kind of haunting. So that was disappointing to me, that was completely left out.
I remember in the book that eventually the how do you call it, the
topiary shrubs. They're just
shrubs.
they're just shrubs, trimmed to be in different shapes. And these
I
animals.
remember that I think it was a couple times in the book where one with it involved Jack being outside and him looking around as if they're coming in closer to him.
Yes. And
another part with Danny where they're coming closer to Danny.
Yes.
I believe those were in the book. Those were a couple of my least favorite parts of the book.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. And the parts of the book that worked for me the most is when it's focused on the family of three. Jack Torrance, Wendy, and Danny. When it's those three, that's when the book works the most for me. Okay. Probably my favorite part of the book and my favorite character in the book version was Wendy, because she felt like a character I would relate to, and she felt like a mother. And I'm not saying that Kubrick's interpretation of Wendy, she didn't feel like a mother at all, but in the book, I really liked her character. She really stood out. There were like a lot of scenes that are still standing out in my head, and I really liked her. And I think I like her character in the book better than the movie. That's the one thing I liked more about the book than the movie. Just that one thing.
Well, and also in the book, she wasn't dressed crazy. You weren't picturing this crazy. Who did wardrobe for this woman? I mean, Who was wearing red tights and red shoes with some peasant skirt thing? Nobody that I know. But they made her kind of frumpy and dumpy in the movie, where she was not that way at all in the book. So that was rather disappointing. But that's, just a small detail.
I think it has to do with maybe the colors that she's wearing. Maybe.
Blood red to match the blood coming out of the elevators, which is nowhere in the book.
Yeah, that was added into the movie.
I think that was just to try to scare you and thinking, all these things are happening in the elevator or something, and there's no reference to the elevator. There is a reference to the elevators in the book where they're finding party favors. And remember, they're all alone. So where are those party favors coming from, the New Year's Eve party? Right, the history that we forgot about in the movie that talks about all the big parties that were there by all the rich people. Yeah, that was kind of creepy and fun as they're trying. Oh, another creepy and fun. I'm sorry, I'm going crazy.
Keep going. This is what I wanted.
What about in the hallway? The fire hose. OMG. Being attacked by the fire hose.
That part I don't remember.
That came out of the wall.
I'm sorry.
And then there were snakes that came out of the carpet and the jungly vines. None of that's in the movie. We have modern, 70s carpeting, which is cool, as Danny's riding his big wheel. I
thought the inside of the hotel looked great. And I do think the movie looks excellent as well, from a visual standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
I really love the music in the movie. I think it complements the tone of the film very well. And from a technical standpoint, I don't have any complaints with it. And I guess I might as well get into my couple issues with the movie.
Okay.
Just to make you feel a little better.
Oh, good.
I don't think The Shining isn't a perfect movie for me. Even though I don't think I would take off a point for it because they're very minor. My biggest issue was that there were a couple of moments where I did feel a little uninvested, like it was dragging on for a little too long. But for the most part, I was with it. And my second issue, this is a very tiny one. It's one tiny little line.
Okay.
So in the beginning, they say that Jack hasn't drank a drop of alcohol for 5 months. But when he's in the bar scene, he says that when the accident happened, that was 3 years ago.
He did.
So,
yes.
My question is...
Right? How did those time frames get mixed up? No, I agree with you.
Whoops!
Because he's mad at his wife for holding a grudge of something that happened 3 years ago. But apparently this was more like 5 months ago.
The timeline is a little off.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's the only. Those are the only complaints I have with the movie, and the rest of it I feel as though it's excellent. And
the movie is great.
Oh, you do like the movie?
I do like the movie. I just think it could be better because there's so many scenes that bring more depth to the character and more depth to the story and more depth to the creepiness of where they are. Supposedly the isolation, that's supposed to drive them all nuts, from being, literally snowed in for, what was it? October through May?
October 30th to May 1st.
Okay, so, all right.
5 months, 5.5 months of peace.
Of peace and quiet. Yeah, I know. It could
exactly
be peace and quiet, or it could just drive you insane of boredom. But, yeah, the movie is fine with all of that. It's just that I think that, just for instance, adding the moving, scary, attacking topiary animals, it makes it creepy no matter if they're inside or outside. Because right now, all the creepiness in the movie is just taking place inside. And we're not really sure why is Jack going nuts.
Okay. I understand how you might feel unsatisfied with Jack going nuts. Because on my first viewing, I didn't understand why he went nuts at all, to be perfectly honest. But rewatching it a couple times, I think I figured it out. So, we have Jack struggling to finish his work, and he wants to write something great, and you said that it was about the history of the hotel in the book, and it's somewhat, kind of, loosely, barely, if you just look at the right spot, you'll see it, but not really. But and as time goes on, you see that he's struggling to write something good, and he's not sleeping, which could be phase 1 for going kind of losing your mind, but not entirely to the point where you would kill your family and yourself. It's like, if that was the payoff, I wouldn't be satisfied at all, but that's kind of how I felt for my first viewing. But after that, if I'm remembering correctly, Jack has a dream where he killed his family, and then Danny comes out, and he's like sucking his thumb, and you can see like a little, probably, I don't, was it a bite mark?
Like more like strangulation.
Yeah, strangulation, like a little something on his neck.
Yeah.
You could see, and I mean, that was kind of step 2, because Jack was like, I didn't do that.
Right,
what
right.
happened?
And the audience knows he didn't do that because he fell asleep while working on his novel at the typewriter, and he was having this horrible nightmare, literally head down on the desk.
Yeah, I believe that's kind of something that happens in the book. Kind of. Well, no, not him sleeping, but Danny getting strangled.
Oh, yeah, Danny gets attacked by something in room 237.
217. They changed it in the book.
Well, oh, I know, it's different. There's another difference, but who cares?
I forgot why they changed it. Or maybe it's because
he didn't read the book.
No, I think he read it. He just doesn't care.
Better yet.
I'll talk about the most iconic acknowledgement to Kubrick saying, "Thank you for the book inspiration." I'll get to that later.
Oh, man.
But going back to Jack's character and why he or how he goes insane. So after he wakes up and he goes to the bar, and that's one of the most important scenes in the movie, where you understand the kind of the mindset that he's in. You may not agree with it, but you understand it. And in Kubrick's movies, I don't exactly find all of his characters to be likable, but that can be made up for if I find them interesting. Like, sometimes the villain of the movie can be the main character, and you don't need, obviously you shouldn't make the villain likable. Like, just at least understand them so you can find them interested, and you want to see where they go from point A to point B, or Z, or whatever you want to do. And after that bar scene, he goes to room 237, where he sees the lady in the bath, and
you know who that is supposed to be, right? That's supposed to be Grady's wife, the mom of the 2 girls. Yes.
Oh,
that's
okay.
his family that he murdered.
Okay.
Ding, ding, ding.
I forgot about that. But what Kubrick was trying to do, I feel, was with the lady being naked. This is going to sound weird. I'm sorry. With the lady being naked and young, that was supposed to kind of lure him in, because he clearly doesn't want to be with Wendy anymore. And he just wants a replacement. And so he walks towards her, and they start kissing, and he looks in the mirror and realizes it's a dead woman.
A dead, like, 80-year-old woman. And he's horrified.
Yeah, that's one of the creepiest scenes in the movie. And her being dead was, one, to kind of mess with Jack's mind, but also kind of give a scare to the audience. And that was the purpose of that scene to me. And then after that, he believes he just denies that there was anything in that room. And the first time I watched it, I was like, why are you lying? And
right?
It's probably now watching it, it's very clearly like him thinking to himself, that couldn't have been real. It's just me going crazy.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he gets a little frustrated with Wendy trying to suggest that they leave the hotel, and he doesn't want to do that, because if he does that, it's pretty much him abandoning everything that is his job and his opportunity to write, because he can't write in a what was it, the cat snowmobile thing, whatever it is. Snowcat, that's it.
Yeah.
It had cat in the word, I just couldn't remember it. And then he goes to the bar again for another drink, And there he meets Mr. Grady. And Mr. Grady cleverly finds a way to make it or convince Jack that he should kill his family, or maybe not kill, correct them.
Yeah.
Correct them.
Like he corrected his family. Well, that turned out well.
And also he mentions that Dick is also coming over, and he says a word I'm not allowed to say. Now watching it, it gives a little more of a justification as to why Jack doesn't like that. One, he's a bit of a racist.
Well, I think Grady totally is, but I think the point is that he didn't like Dick, who was the cook for the hotel, coming back because Grady had told him he doesn't want anybody else interfering. So now he thinks that he's interfering in his business when clearly he's coming out there to help them, knowing what horrors are in that building and the past. He knows all the details because he's been there for all the time. But in Jack's mind, because he's, allowing all these spirits and hallucinations to mess with his mind and basically peer pressure him, if you will, to do things that he normally would not be doing. Yeah, it doesn't end well.
Yeah. And also, one other thing that I wanted to bring up, when Dick is coming over to check up on him, I also kind of took it as my family's trusting him over me.
Yeah.
It's like, that's another way you could interpret it. And all are correct, in a way.
Right.
None are wrong, I'll say. None are wrong.
No, they all play together.
Yeah, I do think there is a lot of substance going on, and I think you would need to watch the movie multiple times in order to get the full experience. And I do want to mention one thing. Some people do feel as though what I consider like what you would need to do to get the full experience, watch it multiple times. Some people see that as the meat of everything, whereas I just see that as the icing on the cake. And I personally don't feel as though you need to know every last little detail that I'm kind of talking about in order to enjoy the film with just one viewing. This isn't a movie where if you haven't seen it twice, you haven't seen it.
No. But if you haven't,
it's not that complicated.
No, it isn't, because it's just a classic horror movie. But I think that if you've read the book, if you've not already read the book, and then watch the movie, you're gonna miss a lot of things. You're gonna be like me. Where was this scene? Where was this background? But you already know that. So then, for me, then the movie is even more meaningful because you know the backstory, even though Kubrick's not telling it in as much detail.
I was about to say he kind of hints at it, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's fair. He hints at it, but he doesn't really explain it like I said, where the book does.
Yeah. And if he were to explore all those elements, we would probably just have raw footage of a 4-hour-long movie. So I understand why you would feel the need to cut it a little bit down. Book to film adaptations aren't meant to be exactly how it is in the book.
Not scene for scene, but to cut out a huge part of the backstory of what should be your character's development, to me that's a huge miss.
Okay.
It would be like Harry Potter and not knowing that he's living in a closet under the stairs, and not knowing that, we have Diagon Alley. Not knowing the backstory of Jack and his past jobs, if you will, and not knowing, once you're there at the hotel, that it's not just the inside that's creepy, it's the outside that's creepy too.
Okay.
And there's evil lurking everywhere on the property. I think that was, a miss.
That brings me to one other thing that I want to bring up. Since you find the backstory and who these villainous characters are to be what makes it scary, would you therefore criticize Halloween for not giving a backstory to Michael Myers that much? And it's barely... You see him in the opening scene, but that's about it. They kind of talk about him briefly, but they don't talk about too much who he is, his backstory of growing up from the 15 years that he was in prison. Would you criticize Halloween for that? Or does it depend on the movie?
For Halloween, no, because they do talk with who's the guy? What's his
Dr.
name?
Loomis?
Dr. Loomis. He goes into great detail throughout all of the movies that he's in, actually, in the Halloween series. That he's just sits and he doesn't say anything, he doesn't react to anything. It's just so for me, it's like here's this kid that was supposedly normal, and then he just snapped on Halloween one day because he saw something that was just beyond his scope of understanding because he's just too young to know what he was seeing. So that's, to me, that's fine. That doesn't have any relevance to me as...
Like, if Dr. Loomis never existed in the movie and it was just a killer that was killing people, would it work still or no? I guess that's my question.
Probably, because there's crazy people all the time. Just listen
like
to any
seeing
news
this
story.
like a mystery man
news.
killing people. And also there's other elements to Halloween.
Wasn't that Ted Bundy? Wasn't that there's so many of those.
I guess going back to... Actually, I pretty much explained Jack going crazy and what led him up to being insane and trying to kill his family. Except for one detail when they're talking about... when they're in the... Jack's workplace and they're just slowly walking up the stairs. And we haven't really talked about that, but it's kind of just basically everything I've already talked about already. But yeah, two versions going for totally different things, and you have the option to enjoy either of them or both of them. I enjoy both still, even though I criticize the book. But
I had one other thing to add about Danny, because Danny is...
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about Danny.
Who's, here's this little boy that he's getting these feelings and visions. He's got this, imaginary friend, if you will, for lack of... Yes. And yeah, it is weird how it was translated in the movie, but whatever. I'm okay with that. Well, there's a little voice in my mouth kind of a thing.
Voice in my mouth. Like,
and then he's using his finger to...
Well, I think that was
talking
just
a different voice, and that's okay. That didn't have to be the same as in the book. But what should have been in the movie that was in the book to add more layers of creepiness and horror is first is when he was you already mentioned when he comes across the two girls in the hallway. Danny, come play with us. And then he gets, these visions of what happened to them, their bodies and all the blood there. And he gets a vision of the blood coming from the elevators. But it doesn't talk about some of the other visions that he had. Like, they were in this big presidential suite, and they were when they were given a tour of the property. And they were just telling him, you have to, protect the windows and put these shutters on. And as they're over there talking about that, Danny's frozen, horrified of what he sees on the walls. And nobody else sees this. But every time, they're talking about, we see visions of, what turns out to be brain matter from someone who shot a bunch of, villains back then. And so, but we don't get any of that in the book. So I just wish there was more of these visions that he gets every time he goes into a room to see something. We got Jack's version when he went into the haunted room, but we didn't get Danny's visions of what he saw when he was in there. So that's why I just wish there was more content on Danny, because this is all affecting, this child, and then there's, a new movie that'll come out much later in a new book. But, it didn't really go into that, all of his shining, because that's the name of the movie in the book, and we're not seeing enough of it in the film version.
Okay, it didn't left you a little unsatisfied?
Yes, because there was more communication between Dick and Danny in the book, because the cook, he's over in Florida to spend the winter, but he keeps hearing, Danny calling to him through their mind communication. And that was such a huge part in the book of how it got Dick to fly over there, because he knew something was wrong, and that kind of got watered down.
Yeah, I can't remember these parts. It's been a while.
Sure.
One thing that I would like to ask.
Uh-huh.
Let's say this was a miniseries instead of a movie, and Kubrick did the entire book, pretty much, and had all these scenes that you wished were in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Would you feel satisfied, knowing Kubrick would probably change them?
Yeah, as long as he doesn't botch it up, yeah. Because I think a lot of these things would add value and added creepiness, because it is supposed to be a creepy movie, to add, like I said, the outdoor scenes of, it's not safe outside on the property either. All the other visions that Danny has inside the hotel, and, the communication between him and the cook, who also has shining. He has the shine.
The shine.
Yes. So I think, if that was, brought out, I think it would be a much better movie. I think, it would get more.
Don't you mean story? Because miniseries.
Oh, well, okay. Miniseries. What else?
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. No. Or I don't know. I don't know what else, I never thought about, well, what should he cut out to replace it with? But it's already done. It's too late, so.
I mean, they'll probably remake it maybe one day. Who knows?
Okay, and they'll listen to this review and they'll say, hey, they had some good ideas.
Yeah, that have already been done.
Right, there's that too.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
I just remembered. In the movie, I don't think this is in the book at all, but eventually there's Dick is driving a car crash that happened, and it's like a red slug bug, and in the movie they have a yellow slug bug, I believe.
Yeah.
And the car is red and kind of destroyed, and that was Kubrick's way of saying, I don't care about your stupid book, King.
What? That's what you get out of that?
Yeah, that's literally it.
Oh my God.
That's supposed to be the car from the book.
Oh my Lord. All right, well.
I don't really have much else to say about this movie. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say about either the movie or the book? Because I'm out.
Because you're out. No, I think the movie is well worth seeing. It's just, it doesn't live up to the book. That's my biggest concern or issue.
Okay. Do you do ratings, or do you not want to do that? It's fine if you don't.
Yeah, no, that's your game.
Okay. Do you want to give it like a thumbs?
Oh, I give it a thumbs up. Yep, see, there it is. Thumbs up.
Okay. And I'm going to give the movie and then the book, because that's the order I saw them in. Process them. Sorry. And Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, I would give 10 out of 10. I really love it. I think it's one of his best. Might be my fourth favorite. I'll have to rewatch 2001 to know the answer to that, because I can't even give a good review of that movie. Because the first time actually I've only seen it once, and I shut it off twice.
Oh, no.
Because I was just so bored. I got through like an hour of it, nothing's happened, shut it off, and then go back to it, went through 20 minutes, shut it off,
Yeah,
because I was just bored.
Lonely.
Then I got to the second half, and then really loved the second half.
I never made it that far. You're a bigger man than I'll ever be here.
Yeah, and I can't even give a good review of that movie, so I need to see it again. Yep, I think this makes 4 10s from Kubrick, and the book I would either give a 6 or 7 out of 10. I know that's really low, but I do like it.
Can I have the book for a moment? Are you kidding me?
That's a positive
so
rating.
much better.
6 or 7 is like... I'm sorry. I'm allowed to have my own opinion.
You're allowed to have your own opinion, even though you're wrong and you're embarrassing your mom. It's got to be at least an 8 or a 9.
Okay.
For you. Because for me, it's a 10.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Okay, that was a great discussion on both the movie and the book. I think I took up most of the time, but I think that was fun.
Yeah, thanks for letting me share my opinions.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like, comment down below what you thought of either version of the Kubrick film or Stephen King's book. There is a miniseries written entirely by Stephen King. I've never seen that version. And whenever you're talking about either of these things, just let me know which version you're talking about so I don't get confused. But let me know your thoughts down below, and my social media links will be in the description down below, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.